In today's video, I want to share a book with you called Crumb Quilts. It's by Emily Bailey. Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst, and I love to work with crumb fabric. Now, if you don't know what crumbs are, those little bits and pieces of fabric that's left over from your quilt projects. They're really small ones, so maybe they're too small to put into, traditionally pieced blocks, but you can put them together and make crumb fabric and then do different things with them. So that's what Emily's doing in this book. She calls it the Scrap Quilting the Zero Waste Way, and that's pretty much true if you're using up these little bits and pieces of fabric. So she starts off the book talking about how you make that crumb fabric and then what you can do with it, making backgrounds with it. You can make applique with it, make blocks with it, of course, as well. And the book itself is divided into 3 different parts. So the first one, she talks about making crumb blocks and using those in a project. Then she talks about using crumb fabric for appliques and then using them for background in different quilts. So this is all full of quilts rather than other types of projects. Well, I shouldn't say that. Quilts or quilted type projects. So it's not like you're going to see a pincushion or something like that in here, okay, or a stuffed animal or something like that, okay? So quiltish type of projects. And when we're talking about crumb fabrics as well, I wanted to mention that I have different videos on how to make crumb fabric and how to make different blocks from crumb fabric. So make sure you check the description below because I'll put links to those videos down there for you to take a look at after you've watched this video. But let's take a look at some of the projects in Crumb Quilts. So this one's called Twist and Shout. So this is where she's just taking the crumb fabric, she's cutting it into squares, making blocks with them, but then she's given them a little bit of a twist. Okay, they're being put into a quilt on a bit of an angle, and you'll notice that the fabric that she's put them with is a white, it's like a solid fabric. So that works quite well with crumb fabric too, because if you put a pattern fabric with it, it can often be quite overwhelming and you miss out on seeing the blocks. So you don't want to do that, right? So we'll see how that works out throughout this book, and I'll give you some other information that she shares in here about combining crumb fabric with other types of fabric. This next one is called Zoodles. Okay, so this is kind of fun because it's got these little kind of curved rectangles, if you will, and this is actually pieced. So she shows you how to go through and put them into this project. So another really fun little project with those crumb fabrics. So here's one of these quilty kind of project. So this is a pillow. This is her love pillow. So I wouldn't really have thought about using crumb fabric to make letters, but why not, right? It looks quite cute. And again, we're using this with a solid or solidish type of fabric so you can really see the text made with that crumb fabric. Then she moves on to the section in the book where she's actually making appliques with the crumb fabric. And this is something that you might not have thought of doing, but it's really very effective. You can see here where she's used the crumb fabric to make these applique leaves for one of the projects. Here's another one called Loose Change, where she's actually used the crumb fabric to make circles. Again, she's put them on a solid or solidish type background so they really stand out. You really see those circles. I think crumb fabric works really well for different geometric shapes. Very effective. Then we get into using crumb fabric as a background. And this is quite interesting because there's some things to think about when you're doing this. As you can see here, we've got all these kind of indigo or darker blue fabrics. That's the crumb fabric. But you can see the little stars here. We're going to take a closer look at this one. The stars are also made of crumb fabric. There's kind of a trick to doing this so it works out really well. So let's take a look at this one called Wonky Rose. Now this is all pieced and she gives you step-by-step instructions on how to make the rose and the background. It's all happening at the same time, right? And what you'll notice in this design is that the roses are like pink or red or yellow. The fabric she chooses to make the rose part of that block is all a one colorway, if you will, okay? And then you'll notice the backgrounds. The backgrounds are like blue or kind of green colors. So the reason this works with the crumb fabric is that she's sticking to a certain colorway for the roses and a different contrasting colorway for the background. So instead of choosing just any kind of fabrics, any colors of fabric to make the rose, and the same thing with the background, in which case they would just blend right into each other, you'd never even notice them, she's being very specific about the colors she's choosing from those scraps to make the roses and the background in this particular quilt. Here's this night sky quilt that I showed you earlier, an up-close picture of it. Here's the entire quilt here. So again, you'll see here that all the stars are in much lighter fabric. A lot of whites in there actually, yellows and reds, but mostly, predominantly I would say white or light fabrics. And then the background are all that really dark, kind of an indigo blue. It looks like sashiko work to me actually. So again, to make sure those stars stand out, you want to make sure that the background fabrics that you're picking are all about the same color. You can see the different ones here she's showing you. So again, step-by-step instructions, lots of photos, lots of diagrams, I should say, of the block as she's making them as well. And then something else I really liked about this book is in the back area here, she shows you different settings. She'll talk about different settings, putting them together, and she'll also talk about quilting them. And that's something you don't always see in a lot of books, right? You'll see that Quilter's Desire that I hate so much. But in this particular book, she actually shows you different techniques and shows you a picture of them. So she talks about doing stitch in the ditch quilting, straight line quilting, outline quilting. There's some free motion there as well, and she goes on as well. So she also tells you how to square up and bind your quilt and finish it off. But I really appreciated this quilting information because it's not something that you typically see, and it's something that you can use on, might work better on some projects than others, but it gives you ideas for what you can do on each of the projects. And the photos are also very helpful, of course. So I really enjoyed this book with a different kind of fresh, modern look to the different projects that she has in it. So if you are looking for projects to make with Crumb Fabrics, I would recommend Crumb Quilts by Emily Bailey. Look in the description below. I put a link down there so you can take a look at that book and even get your own copy if you'd like to. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps to get it in front of other viewers. And remember to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified the next time I release a new video. And before you go, check out these other videos I've included just for you. For more helpful quilting information, please go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.